Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 397. My name's Adam Patterson. With me today, Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hi.
This week on the show, we'll be contemplating our entire existence with a review of Rodney Ascher's latest A Glitch in the Matrix, which is out on VOD right now. We'll also be going over some we're watching on the watch list and going over this week's new releases on VOD and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Please remember to review us on iTunes if you get a moment. That would be super helpful. Just one bit of housekeeping to note. Brian Watches a Movie is coming back. It is going to be dropping on Thursday, so be sure to check it out. It'll be coming out on this feed, so you'll be able to get it on the same feed as you get this.
Yes.
Very exciting. We already recorded it. I mentioned last week that it was coming back, but I was hesitant to give a date because, you know, Ryan's a little wishy-washy when it comes to the recording times, but it worked. We didn't have any technical issues really, and I'm happy with it. I think it turned out good. Stay tuned for that on Thursday, and that's all I got. We're in the planning stages for this month's Saved by the 90s, so I'll have more details about that as soon as we formulate them. With that, I believe we can jump into our review. We're talking about A Glitch in the Matrix. As I mentioned, this is directed by Rodney Ascher. I have a synopsis here. Are we, in fact, living in a simulation? This is the question postulated, wrestled with, and ultimately argued for through archival footage, compelling interviews with real people shrouded in digital avatars, and a collection of cases from some of our most iconoclastic figures in contemporary culture. Now, Rodney Ascher, if you're not familiar, I think he kind of broke onto the scene with Room 237, which came out in 2012, which was his documentary about The Shining and all of the various conspiracy theories that were surrounding The Shining. Some of them were actually very compelling and like kind of crazy, and some of them were just really, really out there. But it was a kind of a fascinating movie nonetheless. And then he followed that up with The Nightmare in 2015, which was all about sleep paralysis, which was also kind of fascinating. And then he did some stuff with, you know what? It looks like he did that El Dolce tapes that's coming out.
What?
Yeah. It looks like he was involved with it somehow. He's listed as a co-director, so I bet he was one of the ones who compiled all the footage. Interesting. I might have to check that out now. But anyway, he's back with a new one, A Glitch in the Matrix. This just premiered at Sundance, and it's out now on VOD. We'll start with you, Kevin. What were your initial impressions of A Glitch in the Matrix?
I went into this not expecting much because I wasn't that big of a fan of Room 237. I thought it was just kind of amateurish.
Mm-hmm.
And just there's this sense of like there's a lot of documentaries that feel like, you know, the deepest they go is kind of like this cursory Wikipedia article. Like that's as far as they dig. With Rodney Ascher's films now, between this and Room 237, it seems like he bypasses Wikipedia and instead is making documentaries based off of Reddit.
It's interesting. Like I agree with you. I have the same issue with nearly all of Rodney Ascher's movies, and I think that maybe it's because there's just not enough like content, and he likes to look at the human element of these things rather than like the scientific element. So in The Nightmare, for example, a lot of that movie was people who have experienced sleep paralysis telling their story about the various things that they experience while in sleep paralysis, which was not, to me at least, was not nearly as interesting as learning about sleep paralysis, like in general, like the condition.
Yeah.
And I think the same could be said about A Glitch in the Matrix, where you have a movie that's all about this simulation theory. I think they call it simulation argument in this, but which I think in and of itself is a fascinating topic to dive into, but you have very little. Now, he does talk to like scientists and scholars and stuff about like what it is and sort of the theories behind it. But that always takes a back seat to him just talking to people who believe that they're living in a simulation.
Yeah, just
and
regular dudes.
Yeah, just regular people, and like how they came to believe that they're living in a simulation, like the chain of events that occurred to cause this revelation, and like just how they live their lives and their backstory and stuff like that. And I think that, I mean, that seems very distinct. Like his style seems very distinct. He likes to look at the human element. He likes to dive into the people behind these theories and stuff. But I just don't think that makes for as compelling a story as maybe he believes that it is.
From what you're saying about the nightmare, I think that works better because you're dealing with people's actual experiences with something.
What he did with the nightmare was he reenacted those things. So in that one, as they were telling the story about what they were experiencing, he would actually show a reenactment of that. So in a way, it was a documentary, but it turned it into like sort of a horror movie also.
Yeah.
Which sounds, it was entertaining for sure.
Yeah. This, I mean, like you said, there's the human element, and on paper, interesting approach to me is theory, which is very convoluted and kind of like saying, okay, well, how does that affect just real life, everyday people? Which he seems to be doing here. But the problem with that is who he chooses to talk to, in that they go on these very long monologues, like you said, where they kind of give you like a backstory of how they came to believe that they're in a simulation theory. And it's like if it's 10 minutes or so or whatever, they're them telling their story. It's like the most banal story that you've ever heard in your life. And B, there's just like no substance to it at all. And C, like you're just like, okay. Like the one guy goes on and on and on. He was like 9 years old in church, and he's like, none of this is real. And it's like, okay, good for you. Why are we talking to you?
I think what he tries to do is look for through lines with each of these people. So like the religious angle, like he'll look for commonalities between all of these individuals and try to figure out why these people would have this sort of thought process and what the contributing factors are to believing that we're living in a simulation. And the thing to note here, and I saw like some people on Letterboxd and mentioning about how these are like Reddit style conspiracy theories and stuff like that. I don't consider simulation theory to be a conspiracy theory. I don't think that there is any kind of conspiring that's happening here. I find it to be I find it to just be it's not, I mean, I can see where one could lump it into like the flat earthers or something like that, but I think that it's way more complex and fascinating than something like that. Because even when you do interview like physicists and scientists and all of these very knowledgeable people, most of them will be like, we could be. Like they all look at it, most of them, I would say, look at it as like a viable possibility, which is crazy.
Well, and I think that's always the interesting thing in terms of just reality and our existence. Is like you have no idea. So it could literally be anything. You know what I mean? You can just throw stuff out there, and you might be surprised how many people you get to share that point of view or be like, oh yeah, I mean, look at Scientology, for Christ's sake. I mean, look at some of the shit that's out there. That there's a large number of people that are like, "Yep, this is it. This is what it's all about." And like, I like him. I like the idea again of him trying to find this through line and attribute it to again everyday people. I just like the actual outcome is he just talks to very uninteresting people. And like the other guys, he's talking about how he keeps track of synchronicities
Mm-hmm.
in his life on this like Excel spreadsheet, or he's using Google Sheets, whatever the fuck it is. And he's just so vague about it, where he's like, "Oh yeah, I've noticed like every 3 days something happens career wise," but he never says what it like what's happening. What is he finding? What are these synchronicities? He never goes any further than just like, yeah, I noticed patterns.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like we all notice patterns, but like what are they?
He also, I think didn't he say he lives by a 12-day week too?
Yeah.
Which I was thinking about that and I'm like, would that really, I mean, how can you live by a 12-day week when literally everyone else on earth lives by a 7-day week? Like, what does that do for you? Like, does it cause conflicts in your life when you're living by a 12-day week and everybody else is on the 7?
Yeah, and it's just like, and like another guy that they talked to towards the end it seems like he's vaguely interested in it, and he like half-heartedly believes that yeah, we could be living in a simulation, but maybe like he's just like vaping, and he's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. And you're like, why are we wasting time with, like, why am I with this guy?
Yeah.
He's not even into it that much, really.
It's so funny. I think again, I will say that this is like the exact same kind of issue I had with all of Rodney Ascher's movies. I like the guy. I think that the guy comes up with really interesting topics for documentaries, but it's like one of those things where it's like I just don't know if there's enough here. There's just not quite enough here.
And I think a large part of it is this is how he sucks you in, because they are extremely interesting topics that he chooses to make films out of. But when I'm watching them, the only thing that I can gather from like on his side from him himself is that like he doesn't really have a curiosity of these subjects. It seems like he's just dicking around and he's like, oh, I'll do this, I guess.
I mean, I think he does, but you're right. He doesn't really come across in the actual movie. I want to talk about, while we're still talking about the subjects of the movie, I think the big one is the guy who ended up, he believed the Matrix, the movie The Matrix was real, basically, and he ended up murdering his parents. And I think that that's probably the most interesting of the subjects by far, but I also don't necessarily believe that this guy was believing in like simulation theory as much as he just believed that the movie The Matrix was real. So I mean, I guess they kind of go hand in hand, but it wasn't like, it was more about the movie specifically than the concept.
And not even the movie necessarily. It seemed like a big part of it was just the duster jacket.
Yeah, he was
from the movie.
Yeah, he was really obsessed with the black duster from that they would wear in the Matrix movies, and somehow he used that as an excuse to murder his parents. And he was talking about how he had like so much remorse and stuff, and it's like, dude, you are not coming, like, as he was telling the story, I'm like, this guy is not remorseful. He does not sound any, like, when he's describing how he shot his mom in the face with a shotgun, like, he didn't, I mean, his voice didn't crack. He did not sound upset about, I understand that this was like more than a decade ago, but I think that if you had that much regret, you would still have a hard time telling the story.
Yeah. I don't. That was just an odd inclusion for me.
I did. There were certain elements of him telling that story that I thought were funny. Now, those parts that I laughed at were before I knew what he did. Just to be clear.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And the one was like when he was talking about Hot Topic, and he's like, I went to this store called Hot Topic. I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
Yeah, and there was this part of me, like when he was introduced and they're talking, and you can like kind of hear the background noise because you can tell he's on a phone, and you can hear the background noise, which I'm familiar with that background noise. Where I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's in a prison, and like he had to do something. Like it was something not good. It was something awful. Like you could just you could like feel it in his voice.
I thought he was going to be a school shooter at first because he's talking about his obsession with the trench coat, and then he mentions guns, looking up guns online, and getting bullied, and I just thought, oh boy, this guy, because everybody else in the movie, and maybe we can segue into talking about this, but everybody else in the movie are not, they're animated, they're like avatars.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he wasn't. He was clearly, it was a phone interview, and yeah, I knew something was up with this guy. And yeah, it turned out to be a really horrific story, but I really liked how they shot that, like how they reenacted that with the, it was animated, but like it was this really, I thought, cool looking, like sort of, I don't know how to describe it, grungy looking CG.
Yeah,
where everything was very jagged, and like it was like anti-aliasing was turned off or something, where every like all the edges were very jagged. And yeah, I thought it was an interesting way to present that story, like having the camera kind of float through the house as he was describing what was going on, and they didn't, romanticize it or anything like that. Like they didn't show the murders taking place or anything like that. They just showed the empty rooms and showed the areas like where his family was sitting and stuff like that. And I thought that it was a respectful way to do it, and I thought that it was also kind of visually arresting.
Yeah, I think it's like if you have to do it, it was a pretty well done way of doing it. But at the same time, I was thinking we don't have to do this. Like this seems like like I understand that tangent of, because the one, let's keep this in mind too, the one woman that they talk to, she kind of points out that this is like a school shooter fantasy. Is where like you are privy to this information that no one, like everyone else, is just sheep, and you've somehow woken up and busted out of the pod like Neo. And then, it's kind of tying this in. But I don't know. It's like, it just didn't work for me. Just to spend that much time with him recounting essentially like minute by minute the day of him killing his parents. It was just like, why are we focusing so much time on this when you have like actual like theoretical minds?
Mm-hmm.
And you're interviewing them, like they're part of the documentary, but like they really feel like they're only there for like 4 or 5 minutes total. Like if you accumulate everything.
Yeah, and see, that's the big problem, is that there's so little discussion of the actual theory, like what basis there is, and so much of it is just anecdotal discussions from these avatars. And I think that I just wanted more of the kind of science aspect of it in there. Like, yeah, having subjects who believe in this is fine, but when it's the overwhelming majority of your movie, I think that that's where it becomes problematic. And I do understand why he would want to include this guy's story, just because of the Matrix angle and because it shows the potential downside of believing in something like this, where this guy believed so much that that the Matrix was real, that he killed his parents to prove it, I guess, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But I mean, that's what he claims, at least. But what did you think? What did you think of the decision to do the kind of avatars rather than just interviewing the people face to face?
I mean, it's a gimmick. Let's just call it what it is. Like, at first I was like, oh, this is like an interesting thing. And then I was like, oh, this is just, I guess, window dressing for the sense that it's a talking head documentary and you don't really have anything else.
But I think it also,
like, it kind of, I guess it worked. I don't know.
I think I liked it. I think that it plays into the whole subject matter of the movie, where we're essentially all living in a video game and everything's a video game within a video game. And so I think that it worked in that regard, but I also think that it was window dressing, which I'm totally fine with, because otherwise, and I think that we're going to see this a lot with documentaries in 2021, just Zoom interviews. Like, everything's going to be, interviews with people over Zoom, and it's going to get boring real fast. So I think that the decision to animate the interviews was kind of refreshing. And I did like how anytime like the quality would drop, there would be like he would like do like the glitchy stuff with the animation, and he kept it light for the most part, like because the thing is, like, a lot of these stories, like, there's the one really serious story, and he obviously doesn't animate that guy. But the other stories in this are fairly light. You know, they're not like super dark and serious, and he keeps things pretty whimsical as far as like the characters go. So I liked that aspect of it. The rest of the animation I thought was, it had a distinct style. I don't know if I necessarily loved it or anything, but it was okay. It was very stripped down. Like, everything was kept very basic. So there was a lot of CG that was just kind of meant to look like like blueprints or like sort of foundational things.
Yeah.
Lots of like generic looking CG character models and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think just overall, it felt like a large waste of time. To be honest, like, so much of these stories are just like, okay, I'm not entirely sure how that ties into simulation.
And that's the thing. Like, I watched a movie that was nearly 2 hours long, and I came away from it having no more knowledge about simulation theory. Like, I gained nothing from it.
Exactly. And a lot of these guys that he's talking to, the ones that get animated with their avatars, like, you're listening to them talk, and they're going on a spiel, 5-10 minutes long, about either how they came to the conclusion that they're living in a simulation, or something else that has happened, or whatever. Like, take for example the guy that decided to do a sleep deprivation tank in some dude's apartment. Like, he goes on about, like, he decides to do it. He's looking online, and he goes to the guy's apartment, and he asks questions. He sits down at the tank. He's going through all this, and I'm like, yeah, like you're saying a lot of words. You're walking me through it, this experience that you had. But, like, at the basis of it, you're not saying anything. Like, this means absolutely nothing. It doesn't seem to tie into simulation theory at all. It's like, what? That was just a waste of time. All you did was tell me that you did a sleep deprivation tank in some dude's apartment. Okay.
I want to do that, by the way.
You would.
I want to do it. I want to do it.
They already did tanks. You got to go to that guy. I want you to do the guy that has one in his apartment.
All right, I'll try to find him.
Please.
He's somewhere in Manhattan, so I'll just got to look up freaking sensory deprivation tank Manhattan apartment man.
Yeah, and then like I said, the guy that looks like he's out of the hell's that game? It's like the glass helmet, the vaping guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like all of his stuff was just pointless. Just absolutely pointless. Like there's no curiosity on the side of the director, and there's like little to no curiosity and even the people that he's interviewing about simulation theory.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think that again, it is a really fascinating topic, and it's one that I think about every now and then. Like what for whatever reason, like I'll just get the thought in my head, like I don't think this is real. Like I don't think what I'm going through here is real. Like
Yeah.
I'll think about it, and I think a lot of people do. Like one other thing that they do mention is the Mandela effect, and how the Mandela effect can tie into simulation theory. And I think that the Mandela effect is another topic that you can discuss, and I think that it's really interesting. I don't know if it necessarily feeds into simulation theory or necessarily proves simulation theory, but I think that the concept of sort of collective memory or collective false memory is another one that I really enjoyed digging into. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the Mandela effect is one of those things, because there's some of those that when I learn about it, it's just like it blows me away. Like after this movie, I did a Mandela effect test, and I only got
Mm-hmm.
I only got 20% of them right.
Wow.
Yeah. So like there were so many things that I thought were one way and are actually another way. Like Fruit of the Loom, the Fruit of the Loom logo.
Yeah.
Like I could have sworn that there was a cornucopia in that logo. There's not.
I don't remember there being a cornucopia.
Well,
I think it's just fruit. It's just fruit, right?
yes, it's just a pile of fruit, but I could have sworn there was a little cornucopia back there.
I love that too. What's your logo? It's a pile of fruit. What do you sell? Underwear, undershirts.
Well, I guess it's you know what? I don't even know. I don't know what it is. But yeah, anyway, I like digging into that type of stuff, and I just don't think they really do much.
No, and like to me, the Matrix isn't even. I mean, I know it's the biggest of all the media that takes a look at this, But to me, if you really want something more complex and more thought provoking, I would watch World on a Wire by Fassbinder from 1973. Really, really interesting movie about simulation theory and virtual reality, computer simulations and stuff.
Yeah, or just a lot of this movie is about discusses Philip K. Dick and his thoughts on simulation theory. And I'd say just read more Dick.
Yeah,
Look,
do that too. Do that.
check out some of his things, like Man in High Castle and Scanner Darkly and some of his other works. Actually, everything. I pretty much love all Philip K. Dick stuff. So, what an advanced mind he had. But I think that was like one of the most interesting things, was learning about how Philip K. Dick believed in this stuff, and that a lot of his stories that he wrote were fragmented memories from when he had freaking sodium pentothal injected into him while getting his wisdom teeth removed, and it caused all of these memories. Like that's interesting.
Which is because when did he say that happened and he started to believe this?
Now, the interview was in like 77 or something, and
Yeah.
So I don't know, probably sometime in the 60s, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, because World on a Wire is based on a science fiction novel from '64. So I feel like he might have just gotten this shit from other writers. So like, I wonder, like, if you kind of go back, because the whole simulated reality thing was before, like that was the thing that I kind of had an issue with. It seemed like they were kind of postulating that Philip K. Dick was like the first mind behind it. Like, I have this huge announcement for the people of France. It's like, it's been around before that.
I think that maybe the big thing was like he popularized it with his work, and the fact that he was like a big name by that point, and then like he had a whole press conference announcing the fact that he believed that we were all in a simulation. Like, I think that was maybe a bigger deal than if there were previous works that discussed it. I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead and give this a score. Kevin, what are you going to give a Glitch in the Matrix?
Man, like a 1? I don't know. Like, I didn't. It's tough. It honestly just feels like a waste of time. Like you said, like I came away with absolutely nothing. Honestly, except for a couple guys telling some like really boring, banal stories. I don't. I just don't understand. What it's for.
I mean, for me, it's there are a couple things that I took away from this. One is that it got me to have conversations about simulation theory with, my friends and family and stuff. I had conversations after this movie, which I think is a good thing. And then the other thing is like, I think that some of the creative elements of this movie were good, and I liked them. So those are really the two positives I have about this. So because of that, I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Okay. All right. We do not like a Glitch in the Matrix.
No. Unfortunately, it's another Rodney Ascher that just slightly misses the mark for me. Still like the guy. Still like what he's doing. I think that he's taking creative approaches. But yeah. All right, let's talk about someone watching. I saw Prisoners of the Ghostland, directed by Shion Sono. This is part of Sundance here. Now, if you're not familiar with this, this is going to be Sono's English language debut. This is his first one, and according to the Q&A after the movie, he was just like, "Yeah, I want to do more English language movies." He's like, "I want to make more American films." So for my first one, I decided to play it a little bit safe. And if you're not familiar with Sono's work, like him playing it safe is still like 10 times more bizarre than any other like English language film. So what you have here is this is like a it's like a sukiyaki Western. So it's a modern Western movie. It takes place in Japan, stars Nicolas Cage, and Nicolas Cage is a bank robber who gets caught, and this corrupt governor decides to hire him to retrieve his granddaughter who ran away. The granddaughter played by Sofia Boutella. And so it's kind of this like dystopian Mad Max style world. And what he does is he straps bombs all over Nicolas Cage. He puts him in the suit, straps bombs. So there's a bomb on each arm, there's a bomb on his neck, and there's 2 bombs on each of his testicles. So he has nutsack bombs attached to him. And he has like 3 days or something to go retrieve this guy's granddaughter, bring her back, or else the bombs explode. And then he also has like sensors and stuff. So like if he physically abuses or attacks a woman, it'll go off. So he can't like put his hands on her. And it also has sensors that basically like if he gets horny, it'll go off. So he can't, take advantage of her either. And it's weird. It's definitely weird. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more action. It's fairly light on action, and Nicolas Cage is great in it. I mean, it's pure Cage, and I think that even Nicolas Cage in an interview said that it was like his craziest role yet, but I don't necessarily agree with that. He doesn't have that much dialogue, and yeah, it's it's weird. But I don't know. I guess my expectations were just a bit too high. It is Sono's highest budget film, and you can clearly see that on screen. There's giant sets in this movie. Very big, elaborate, beautiful sets, and the world building is pretty solid in this too. Lots of gorgeous cinematography in here, and I recommend it. Just know what you're getting into. I think that it helps if you're kind of familiar with Sono's work. It's not necessarily an accessible film necessarily. I think Chris was watching this at the same time as me, and he was comparing it to Holy Mountain, and I don't disagree with that. So it's definitely out there. Maybe not as out there as like a Jodorowsky film, but it's something. So I would recommend it. Prisoners of the Ghostland. I imagine this will drop at some point this year on VOD.
I look forward to this.
I think you'll like it. I think as long as you understand going into it that it's not very action heavy, there is action, but it's pretty sparse, and it really just happens at the end. It is satisfying, but I was just... Oh, the other big thing. Tak is in this. Tak Sakaguchi is in this. Yes. And he obviously does the action choreography too. So when there is action, it's very good.
Nice. I'm very excited for this. Just so excited. The only other thing that I saw was Lucky Grandma, directed by Stacey Seeley. This is, overall, it's an okay movie. But the thing that's nice about this is, it's set in New York City's Chinatown, which is always nice. You know, you have all Chinese cast, and of course, you know, going based off of the title here, you have an elderly woman in the main role, and it's just, she goes to like a fortune teller, say that, you know, upcoming day coming up, she says luck is going to be on her side. It's just going to be a lucky day for her. So she decides to take all of her money out of her bank account. She's a widower. She doesn't have much money. So she's like, I'm going to the casino. She takes a bus trip into the casino. She's like, this is going to be my day. And it starts off that way. As soon as she gets to the casino, she starts playing games, and she's just winning left and right. It doesn't matter what game she plays. Roulette, craps, doesn't matter. She's just winning nonstop. And it seems like she, of course, doesn't know when to stop. She's just like, this is my day. It's never going to run out. Except that it does. And then on the way back, she ends up getting the old cinematic duffel bag full of money. And guess what? Ends up starting a gang war because she takes this duffel bag of money. And then everyone gets drawn in. People that shouldn't get drawn in, like her grandson, he gets involved and he gets kidnapped. And I mean, all sorts of stuff going on here. So it's very familiar in terms of, you know, any narrative that you've seen that involves a duffel bag of money that doesn't belong to someone, but they take it. And of course, it actually should be going to some sort of criminal. And then, you know, just everything that happens when you make that decision, it's pretty much how you would imagine it to play out, like all those other movies have, really.
Got it.
But the thing that makes this a little bit distinctive is location and cast, and it is fairly light throughout. You know, it's not super serious. It's got a fun soundtrack. You know, it's not a bad time. It's also just not, you know, a very distinctive movie. But if you're looking for, you know, a light, enjoyable time, I think Lucky Grandma will hit that for you.
All right. There you have it. The only other one that I'll mention is Space Sweepers. This is directed by Jo Sung-hee. This came out on Netflix this weekend. It's a South Korean sci-fi movie. Big sci-fi movie here. really good effects work in it. Most of it takes place in space, and it's definitely got a little bit of a like a Firefly kind of vibe to it. Even maybe some Cowboy Bebop in there, where you have these this scrappy ragtag group of they're like sort of junk collectors. So like they go out and they find like abandoned shit in space and gather it up and get paid, because in the future, this takes place in 2092, space is just littered with garbage, and it's very dangerous obviously to have that garbage floating around. So this team, they go around and they pick up all this garbage and scavenge what they can out of the ships, and then take it in and get paid to turn in these like junk, piles of junk. And what happens is they end up going out and retrieving the ship, and guess what? There's a little girl on board, and turns out that this little girl is very, very special. She's a very special little girl, and there's a lot of people looking for this little girl. She's worth a lot of money, and so they have to decide if they're going to turn her in, make a bunch of money, who they're going to turn her into. There's all these different like factions that are trying to get the girl. And then really what's going on? Like, why are they going after this girl? Yeah. So I definitely recommend it. Again, I really liked the effects work. The world building in this is quite good. It's light. It's got almost a kind of Guardians of the Galaxy vibe to it, where everything is kind of fun and upbeat. The action scenes are really good. There's like some like shootouts, like spacecraft shootouts. And I really enjoyed it. Again, it's called Space Sweepers, and it's on Netflix, so check it out on there. Okay, let's take a look at what we have on VOD this week. VOD. What do we got coming out on VOD?
Yeah, hit me.
Tasmanian Devil. This is not what the title suggests. This is actually about a guy who relocates to the United States from Nigeria, finds himself simultaneously balancing the culture shock of immigration with the growing pains of being a college freshman.
All right.
We have Sacrifice. This is a horror film featuring Barbara Crampton. Dream Well. I
have a feeling you won't.
No. We have Heavy coming out. Not sure what this is about. It's a romantic crime thriller. There you go.
Is it just me, or movie titles just getting more and more bland?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about like
I can't look half of these things up.
I know,
because there's already like 30.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at movies of the 70s, they were all very distinct. Not all, but I mean, largely. Like you knew when a movie title has like 10 words in it.
Yeah, when it's a complete sentence, you're like, that was made in the 70s.
Yeah. Anyway, we have Happy Times. This is looks like some kind of horror comedy.
Yeah, let me see if I can look up Happy Times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
We have Private Chat. This is one that we covered last year during Fantasia Festival.
Isn't it pronounced PVT Chat?
PVT Chat.
PVT Chat.
We don't recommend that one. Song for Our People is coming out also on the 9th. This is a documentary about a group of activist musicians and artists who come together to create a powerful new anthem to honor their ancestors and celebrate Black lives. We have Nothing Else. This is, I'm not sure what this is. It's an action movie. Two strangers find themselves trapped in a room and stuck in a time loop with no recollection of how they got there, and soon discover the world that they knew is gone.
No.
This mind-bending tale from writer-director Timothy Conrad is in the tradition of Tenet, Inception, and Primer. Something tells me... Well, I shouldn't say it. I'm not going to judge it without seeing it.
Yeah. But I just like the tradition of Tenet.
Yeah.
Like Tenet's been around.
The tradition of Tenet, the movie that came out last year. Oh my. On the 11th, we have Red Dot. This is on Netflix. It's a Swedish action thriller set in the Swedish mountains.
Mm.
It's about a couple who head off to rekindle their relationship, but after they end up, what is this? They end up being hunted by some people in the woods, I guess.
All right.
On the 11th, we have The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. This is on Amazon Prime. Also on the 12th, we have Young Hearts. It's some kind of romantic. I don't know if it's a comedy. It might be just a romance movie. We have Lapsus. Noah Hutton. Yeah. I'm glad that this got picked up and is coming out. I believe it's
Me too.
Film Movement that's putting this out. Highly recommend. Highly recommend Lapsus.
Definitely. I agree with that. I just want to go back to The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. Also, a time warp loop.
Oh, yeah, movie. It is. Yeah.
When will that die?
Never. Absolutely never. We have Cowboys coming out starring Steve Zahn. We have
Cowboys.
Yeah, Cowboys. It's about
Steve Zahn
coming back. It's about a troubled but well-intentioned father who's recently separated from his wife, and I guess his wife is refusing to let their trans son live his authentic self. Paradise Cove comes out. This is a thriller of sorts, it looks like. Mina Suvari's in there. Me You Madness.
What?
Me You Madness comes out. There's no commas. It's just Me You Madness. So it's just, you got to say it all in one stream here. Me You Madness. It's not me, comma, you, comma, madness. It's Me You Madness. Looks like a dark comedy. Probably not going to be worth a look. We have Hopeless Romantic. This is obviously a romantic comedy about, I don't know, looks kind of like a Sex and the City ripoff, really. We have Meltdown. That's a documentary about, I think glacial melt.
Oh, okay.
We have Happy Cleaners. This is about a family who have a cleaning business and they lose it, and it's about how they deal with it.
Okay.
I Blame Society. This is a horror comedy about one of these, like, it's about a woman who is like kind of social media obsessed and decides to like kill people. I don't know. It's not even worth too many of these.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that is it. That's a lot coming out. Not a whole lot worth a look, in my opinion, but Lapsus is really the only one that I would definitely recommend. On Blu-ray this week, we have The Parallax View from 1974, starring Warren Beatty. We have Elysium coming out on 4K. Didn't like that one. We have Freaky coming out on Blu-ray. Definitely recommend that. Elizabethtown from 2005 coming out. So it looks like Paramount is releasing a bunch of their like romance movies, I guess, for Valentine's Day. So Love Story from 1970 is also coming out. There's probably some other ones in here that I don't see. My Bloody Valentine from 1981 is coming out. That's going to be a remastered edition. Definitely recommend that if you haven't seen that yet. Tourist Trap from 1979. This is the uncut version coming out on Blu-ray.
Nice.
Recommend that. Greenland, starring Gerard Butler. That's the disaster movie that's coming out. Last time I talked to my dad, he's like, I spent $20 to see Greenland on VOD. I was like, I'm not surprised. My dad he loves disaster movies so much. He's like, it was bad.
$20. Oh, the poor guy.
We have Jazz on a Summer's Day from 1959. Tale of Two Cities from 1935. The Suspect from 1944. Wings of the Hawk 3D from 1953. Sputnik
Nice.
from last year. I liked Sputnik.
Sputnik was pretty good.
Beach Babes from Beyond from 1993. The Little Prince, this is the 2015 one, which I liked a lot. I thought that was really extremely underrated. I don't know why that didn't get talked about very much. Naked Girl Murdered in the Park from 1972.
I was just gonna say that's a '70s movie.
Yeah,
That title, that's a full sentence.
I mean,
Put a
not
period on that.
not only is it very apparent that it's a '70s movie, but it's most certainly a giallo too. You can bet your bottom dollar that's a giallo, and I just confirmed that it is a giallo.
Of course.
The Hills Run Red from 1967. Devil Times 5 from 1974. Devil Times 5. Like, that's a great title. The movie might be shit, but the same with The Hills Run Red. Like that, these are good titles. Madame Claude from 1977. Man of the East from 1972. Zoom Up Murder Site from 1979. Zoom Up Murder Site. Okay. Blue Monkey from 1987. Didn't we just mention this one? We did just mention this one a couple weeks ago.
We sure did.
I don't know what that's all about. The El Dulce tapes from, well, this was released last year, but this is Arrow's putting this out. It's like a sort of a documentary about this guy who just followed around the lead singer of the band The Mentors.
Okay.
So it's sort of a rock doc, I guess. The Treasure of Dracula, the sexy vampire version. Okay. 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, The Devil's Express, Panic Beasts. Sorry, Panic Beats. Panic Beats.
Oh, what you said first sounds like a better movie.
Well, I said beasts, but when you look at the cover, there's like a snake with a crazy head, and then like there's clearly some beasts behind it. So, and the synopsis is from 1983. Synopsis says the spirit of a deceased knight returns every 100 years to clean a house by graphically murdering the women who are making the life of his descendants unbearable.
Hold on.
And I am adding this to my watch list as we speak.
Let's pause for a minute.
Sounds so ridiculous.
Wait, it's 1983.
It's also it looks like it's also known as Heartbeat. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is already in my watch list apparently. Fantastic.
We have The Right One from just earlier this year, a couple weeks ago, actually. We have a review for that up on the site's romantic comedy. Happy Times, Necropath, Wetware, Before, During, After, Song of Our People, Deep in Vogue, Honor Killing. That's a Troma release from the looks of it. Sex Terrorists on Wheels.
Okay.
And that's about it. What about Criterion's?
You already mentioned it. The Parallax View.
Oh, I didn't know that was a Criterion.
Yeah, 1974. The Parallax View.
Oh, I see that here. I was just looking at the cover and I didn't see the little C logo.
Yeah.
There.
Plus, that cover is something.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I like it.
Yeah.
If you're into like the minimalist covers, anyway.
I don't know. It's just crazy to think that someone got paid good money to do that.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. You can send us your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @filmpulsenet and @filmpulsekevin. If you have a minute, consider reviewing us on iTunes. That would be extremely helpful. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.